forgiveness does not mean trust. If someone steals from your company, should I forgive the person who stole from our company? Yes. That doesn't mean they still get to work for you. That's restoration of position. If the babysitter, we found out she spent the entire time on her cell phone in the backyard while they were in the front yard, this is a young lady we would not have back. If she said, well, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. Oh, we will. You're not coming back. You know what I'm saying? And so forgiveness, because forgiveness is given, baby, trust is earned. And so for in a marriage, if someone messes up, a week later, I thought you forgave me. I am in the process of forgiving you. I don't know if I trust you yet. That's valid.
There's this consciousness of humanity when you look around at so many people that it's deeply rooted in a negative self-talk. A lot of people feel that they're in the victim mindset and they can't seem to escape it. They're full of anxiety, that it's their partner. But through all that, everybody has this desire to alleviate their suffering. But through a lack of tools or lack of force of knowing how to change, they're stuck in that same cycle, and it's very redundant. And so what would you offer as any counseling or advice to help people break out of that?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful disciplines that I have, and I've done this for years. I have a journal, and every day I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, and it's just kind of like I believe that my life is being bombarded by blessing, and yet this is just a moment when I stop and reach out and grab 3 things as they go zipping by. Having a walk with my granddaughter, to get a donut, a meal with my wife, any interaction with my son-in-law, an encouraging email that I got. So there's a gratitude exercise, and I think that's helpful because we can fixate on what's going wrong. Gratitude, Amari, gratitude is an obsession with what is going right. Complaint is an obsession with what's going wrong. Anxiety is an obsession with what might go wrong. And envy is an obsession with what's going right for everybody else but me. I mean, envy is that wounded voice that whimpers, why them and not me? And so I think that exercise of gratitude, expressing thanksgiving to God for what's going well, I think that's powerful. But at the end of my journal each day, and this is probably more important, I sign off the journal by going, this is Jeff, your beloved son, to God. Or this is Jeff, the son you love. Or this is Jeff, infinitely secure, treasured, and loved. I don't do that to remind God. I do that to remind me that my most core identity is someone who is deeply loved by the Father. Now, that's not a way of sugarcoating pain. And that's not a way of sugarcoating suffering, because our Bible has a way of really hitting suffering head on and seeing it for the mess that it is. But remembering that I'm a beloved child of God helps me rise above that suffering and anchor in what is really, what I believe is most true about me. That is, I'm a dad, I'm a grandpa, I'm a pastor, I'm an author, but what is most true about me is I am deeply, deeply loved by my Heavenly Father, and secured and treasured. And knowing that provides an anchoring point when a lot of other stuff can go south. But that's an anchoring point that I come back to.
I love that. Mm-hmm. And I think when you were talking, it kind of choked me up a little bit, because hearing you say that, right over there next to that water,
yeah,
I have a gratitude journal. And if we were to grab it and open it up right now,
yeah,
I write 3 things I'm grateful for.
Wow.
So I think that's absolutely beautiful. That's something that grounds you and keeps you there. And I just happened as I was leaving out of the house today to bring that. Never normally bring it out of the house.
Incredible.
But it's sitting right there.
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful that people can take that, and that's kind of where your mindset lies and going forward in life. Have you always done that, or is it something that you've recently adapted in life?
I lose track of time. I'm thinking about 15 years ago. Okay. And I didn't do it. I did not start this because I'm the gold standard for gratitude. Amari, I started that practice because I found myself just feeling kind of unthankful, okay, and maybe entitled. And I just went to myself, I don't want to become that ungrateful old guy. And so I thought, this practice over time, not in a day, because how does that change your day? It really doesn't. But do it a couple thousand days. It begins to change the contour of your heart and bend your heart toward Thanksgiving. And I really started it because of something I saw in myself that I didn't like, and that was a daily exercise, like working out, a daily habit to help reshape and reform my heart and my mind.
I just love this so much. I do that to my mom and my sisters. We have a group chat, and that's my thing of, give me 3 highlights from your day.
Oh, that's incredible.
And I think it's just so vital to even get down to, I found a parking spot at the front today.
Yep.
It can even be that simplistic.
Yeah.
And just, I think, like you're saying, of keeping that mindset going of those positive things. It's just so lovely.
I started it years ago before I knew that, psychologists were going to weigh in on the mental health benefits of doing it.
Yes.
But now, living happier life, writing 3 gratitudes a day, that's starting to appear on the list. I go, I knew that before. I knew that before the article.
No, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that live in a space of guilt and being able to predict what's going to happen next from their circumstances or from their decisions, rather than taking a chance and possibility and doing something for the first time. And when I say that, I'm thinking of kind of the notion of, Jeff, I'm not sure how to start coming to church. I'm not sure how to get back in my faith. What's, again, a piece of mindset that you have there, or how would you help someone with that?
Yeah, it's going to involve risk. But I would suggest that for many people, it's a high risk, high reward venture. Chris and I, my wife and I, we travel quite a bit. And there's always this tension of when we're in another country, okay, there's the KFC. And there's the country that sells, the national food, wherever it is, whether it's the country of Turkey or Greece or Israel, and going, okay, what if they don't speak English? What if they don't have an English menu? And so you can go with what's familiar and what's old. You hit the McDonald's, we had friends take us to a TGI Fridays in Kiev, Ukraine. And we go, you gotta be kidding me, we're in Ukraine here. We can go anywhere, and you're taking us, well, we thought you'd like the American hamburgers, and we got enough of those. But when you wander into a place that's alien, when you go, we're gonna figure this out, even if it's pointing at another table and saying, we want what they've got, and they'll figure that out. I just remember that in a restaurant. I go, I have something they want, money, and they have something I want, food. We will be able to navigate this, but it's I don't know, do you pay at the counter? Do you seat yourself? Do you wait for someone to seat you? And so you just have to embrace the uncertainty and embrace the risk. But those are often some of the highest reward experiences in life. And when you walk into a church, particularly if you've been out of it for a while, there might be contemporary worship. You used to know the songs, now you don't know any of the songs. What if there's a sit down, stand up type thing that you got? I just say, take the risk and be willing to attach to an imperfect fellowship and just grow with people. There's no such thing as a perfect family, no such thing as a perfect school, no such thing as a perfect company or hospital, or no such thing as a perfect heart. And so finding a church is, to what group of imperfect people will I devote myself to as we grow together? And so at first you might show up as a shopper. Am I learning here? But as fast as possible, turn the corner. This is a place to love, and this is a place to serve, and this is where we grow together. And turning from consumer to servant as rapidly as you can, not 4 years later, but like you say, this could be my church. Okay, look for a place to throw down, look for a place to give yourself. And that, often not in the church service, but in a serving group, is often where you find the deepest relationships and the richest relationships.
I like that imperfect of that recognition of that. I think from the outside, a lot of people can feel that any circle, whether it's a church, whether it's a new sports team, whether it's a new lunch table, that everybody there thinks they're perfect. And I think that recognition of knowing you're not perfect allows so many more people able to embrace and to be more vulnerable in that sense.
I don't know that you ever heard of the guy Eugene Peterson. There's a version of the Bible called The Message, and he basically took the Bible and put it in kind of his own words, so it's The Message. But Eugene Peterson was a pastor, and I love, in one of his books, he says, there are no successful churches. There are no successful churches, only collections of sinners, and one of the sinners they call pastor. Which I loved that.
Yeah, that's great. So. And I think we were talking about this at the beginning, but something that I recently heard this, and it just struck me to my core, is that when we think about simplistic things in life, if you take an orange and I was to squeeze the orange, no matter how tight I squeeze it, how fast I squeeze it, what I do to that orange, only going to get orange juice.
Only going to get orange juice, man. Yep.
Never going to get apple juice out of it. Nothing else is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
And when you take a human being and you squeeze their heart, their trust, their patience,
yeah,
you go back to that simplistic thinking of, well, whatever's coming out of it, it's already in there.
Yeah.
And I think for so many people, and myself included for so long, and I was able to wake up to this thanks to you, is that when I am squozing sometimes, anger is what's produced as my juice. And I think when you are able to look at that and go, wow, that's not something, that's not the end goal I want to see there. You're able to take a step inward and go, wow, well, why is that there? And I think through that anger is also the topic of resentment and not being able to forgive.
Well, that illustration of the orange and orange juice coming out of it, that's really close to a biblical image where Jesus says you can't get like figs from a thorn bush. Yes. It's kind of like by their fruit, you look at the fruit, you look at the juice. In that same passage of scripture, and one of the places that Jesus said this is in Luke chapter 6, where he says, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And it's so powerful because when I'm blasting through my day and I've got impatient words with Chris, my wife, impatient words with my grandchildren, just words that are a little too cutting, a little too quick, a little too defensive, I go, well, I got a word problem. No, I got a heart problem. And so getting the heart squared away often before my most pivotal interactions. And so I talk about two journal disciplines, one of them with the gratitude and one of them, this is the Jeff, your beloved son. Now this other one I do those like almost every day. This one I don't do every day, but I do it when I wake up and I'm already agitated. I'm already kind of restless and impatient and my day hasn't even started yet. I write down a list and I say, mad, glad, sad, excited, afraid, ashamed. 6 words. And I force myself to pick one. Mad, glad, sad, excited, afraid, ashamed. And this could be other, right? And I go, I'm mad. And they go, why? And I don't know why. Well, think about it. Why? And the purpose there is to recognize my emotions that are going on. I'm just really sad. I'm sad over this. It's just really disappointing. And I'm angry about that. I'm ashamed. I blew it. I had an opportunity. I was in this wonderful interview and I couldn't remember the right word. And shame kicks in. And that is my opportunity in the morning to kind of experience heart movement before I inflict myself on everybody that I'm going to bump into that day. And so, the staff meetings, relatives, my marriage, right? Dude, we've been married 40 years. We're still working on it, still. And so just being able to go, okay, mad, glad, sad, excited, afraid, ashamed. And I circle one and I say, okay, why? What's going on? Here we go. God desires to meet me there. And you take something in our Bible called the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, self-control. And I say, okay, God, today I need your love because I'm not feeling it. I mean your love for others. And this isn't something God does for you, but it's something God does in you to transform you. And it's not the fruit of Jeff. Here it's the fruit of God's Spirit that allows me to be more patient than I would ever be, more self-controlled than I would be, and more loving than I would be. And so it's like Jesus gave his life for me so that he could live his life through me. But it's when I go, okay, this is what's going down, and God, this is where I need you today. Getting some of that work done before meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and decision, we got to decide this, and how many Christmas services are we going to have this year, and before I throw myself into that, just taking that time to get my heart right.
And I love that you're even talking about essentially attending to the garden of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, it's just, we talked about before of in so many different outside perspectives that when people assume that you went from California to here and you immediately had all these campuses and all these people behind you and supporters, that it just happened like this. But that tending to the garden and even doing it now.
Yeah.
Of so many people I feel like could look and go, you know, Jeff is an author, he's a pastor, he's a father, he's a great. Does he stop doing the work?
I didn't write till I was 48.
Yeah.
You know, my first book came out when I was 48. Graduated from high school in Northern California, Sacramento. Then girlfriend, now wife, Chris, we both went to the same Bible college, so we moved out to go to this college. And then after my third year, between my third and fourth year, junior and senior year, we got married and came back and finished my last year of school, and that's when this little church meeting in a house asked me to come and ask if I would fill in, and that was Ada Bible Church. 25 people our first weekend. And then a month later or so, they asked us to speak twice, and they asked me to stay, like until they found a real pastor. You know, they're still looking. You know, the pulpit committee's still meeting, trying to find the right one. But 40 years now. But we have several thousand people. We're at 4 campuses. Amari, it took 7 years to get up to 100 people. Consistently. Actually, went up to 100, had 3 false starts on a building program where we said we're going to get out of this house, we're going to build, and then, okay, no, it'll be next year. No, it'll be next year. No, sorry, it'll be next year. And drop from 100 down to about 50. So the net growth after 7 freaking years was going from like 25 up to 50. Finally got out of that building, into our next building, some things locked in. And we started to grow then. But keeping our heart together and keeping our mind together during the years where we weren't, you know, my dad was a preacher, right? I was prepared for disappointing days. I was not prepared for disappointing years. I was not prepared for years of disappointment, and I was not prepared for years of feeling like a disappointment. Yeah. Then after the 7 years, the next 7 years, we went from 100 to 900. And everything changed and then changed again, and it wasn't coordinated. We felt like that 13-year-old that grows 3 inches in one summer and pants are up, you know, nothing fits, and they're just awkward and gangly. And so when we started growing, it was, so there was the pain of not growing, then there was the pain of growing. And so I think our first 14 years, you know, were just really formative in humility, what it means to love people, what it means to serve people, but more than that, what it means to hang in there. We just love overnight success, and we love a quick fix, and it doesn't prepare us for the long haul of learning to do something well and waiting for the amount of time taken for something to kick in. And so I'm just this huge believer in something called ant power, where it's from the Proverbs. Ants are creatures of little strength, and yet they store up food for the winter. And it's like a dad takes his kid out, and they're looking at the ant pile, the ant hill. It's like this ant going out and coming back, going out and coming back, going out and coming back. And the dad says to his kid, we will be like the ants. You know, we will check our goats every day to see if there's an infection. We will pull weeds in our vineyard every day. We will check the condition of the wall that's protecting our field. And it's just, it's mastering the mundane, and it's boring. Faithfulness, my friend, faithfulness is not a sexy virtue, but it's good. And I'm telling you, man, look into any really healthy company or school or hospital or church or family, you will find some people who just kept showing up and trying to bring their best self. Wow. So.
No, it's true. I think it's easier and more palatable to hear in an athletic sense, right? Yeah. You can hear the guy say, you know, I got cut from a high school team, or I got cut from this college team when I came back. But I think when you get into the faith of it and the real world circumstances, that not a lot of times are those stories shared with people, or at least that people seem to be privy to it, of, like you're saying, of these multiple years where, I mean, it's easy to understand in a lot of sense. It would have been easier to quit.
Yeah.
Or it would have been easier to have that mindset of, you know, okay, I think this might have been my purpose, but these years are just taking so much time. We want to travel. We want to have kids at a certain point. When do we throw in the towel here? And I think keeping it's like the classic story that everybody tells of the guy digging for gold. He gets right there, turns around, takes his shovel and equipment and leave, and another guy comes and keeps digging, and he gets the gold. And I feel like that's a little bit similar to kind of your life story of you were just the person that kept digging. And I think that's just beautiful in its sense that you didn't give up and that you're still digging.
Yeah, I'm still in the game.
Yeah.
I'm still in the game. But yeah, we're just, I think particularly my younger friends, many people, I want to live a great life. Yeah. We want to live great lives. But unfortunately, we look for something great to do. And we look for that moment when our ship comes in, when our unique contribution is discovered, when we get discovered. And there's just this moment of greatness. And almost always, when someone arrives in the room of greatness, it's not through a lengthy corridor of having done great things. It's having done good things repetitively. The coach, the mom, the manager that just kept showing up day after day, encouraging, saying the right thing, doing the right thing, and they ended up being great at what they did. But you look back on the days, nothing looked phenomenally heroic. Yes. It was just this over and over and over and over again. And you wake up one day and other people, in humility you wouldn't say it about yourself, but other people say, he's living a great life. He's a great dad. He's a great manager. He's a great coach. The coach is doing the same drills they were leading people in 8 years before, so there's just a lot of sameness.
That sameness is very true, especially in just betting on yourself. I think that I heard that a lot in sports and growing up in life of bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself.
Yeah, and I really like that too.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah.
But I think one of the most powerful things of why we're here today for me is back in April and seeing you talk about forgiveness. And I think that we were all in this room here and not directly with you, but I think hearing you speak that day, I think it hit everybody where there's always a sense of everybody's focus and attentive to you, but it became a thing of I could almost feel everybody in the room clench their seats a little bit when you were speaking of forgiveness, because I think that's something that no matter how much money you have, no matter your status, no matter where you live in the world, it's difficult to do. And I would just love if you could share with people even a glimpse into what I learned that day from you speaking on those lessons of forgiveness and you walking the audience through everything that you were able to enlighten me to that day.
Well, I'll say a few things that I think are important, but then you jog my memory.
Yes.
And let me know what touched you, and then I'll riff on those things.
No problem.
First of all, I would say that what we want are relationships that don't break. That's not what we get. In any marriage, in any family, in any friend group, we're looking for people that will say the right thing, do the right thing, show up when we need them to show up. And for any long-term relationship, I think there's a breaking and a mending, and a breaking and a mending, and a breaking and a mending. And by a breaking and a mending, I mean that hurt me, I'm sorry, I forgive you. That's a relationship that's on track, not a relationship where people don't harm each other. I'm amazed, the Apostle Paul's writing to a young, new group of Christians in Ephesus. It's the letter to the Ephesians in our Bible. And he says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving one another. He doesn't tell them not to hurt each other. He says, look, it's going to happen. But the anchor of that is forgiving one another just as, this is powerful, in Christ, God forgave you. And my friend, that's the why. The why should I forgive that person after what they did to me? The why is that someone who understands the story of the cross and Jesus coming for us. I forgive you. It's like horizontal forgiveness. I forgive you because someone forgave me. I cancel your debt because someone canceled my debt. I throw some mercy your way because someone threw a whole lot of mercy my way. But in order to really, I use the word appreciate, in order to really appreciate the forgiveness that we received, we have to see ourselves as the dirtbags that we were. And so if I go, and I think I did something there that weekend where I said, something becomes cliche over time. Jesus died for my sins. Almost like a run-on sentence. Jesus died for my sins. And I think I paused in the sermon. I said, okay, look, which ones? Well, all of them. Oh yeah, like such as. Because until I remember that time in the 8th grade, I made fun of that person and got laughs at their expense. I could have protected someone. I could have stepped in and said, stop it, and yet I joined in and I didn't protect. Remembering some of those, I was unkind, I was unfaithful, I was inconsistent, I totally disrespected my parents. You have to come in touch with that moment of depravity, not to shame out, but just to be able to go, Lord, and at the cross, you paid for that one, you paid for that one, you paid for that one, and you paid for that one. And then when you hear the voice of Jesus in the Lord's Prayer, right? The Jesus' disciples come to him and they say, would you teach us to pray? And if they were like Jewish kids raised in Jewish families, they already knew how to pray. But Jesus was praying differently. And they were saying, teach us to pray like you pray. And so Jesus says, okay, when you pray, pray something like this. And what we have there is what we call the Lord's Prayer or the Our Father. And part of it is forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And it's that horizontal or that vertical horizontal forgive us as, but it's like forgiveness in, forgiveness out. Yeah. And just to see that forgiveness in, forgiveness out, that's the why of forgiveness. The what of forgiveness, and this is very critical because people confuse forgiveness with a bunch of other things. And so the most common image for one of the Greek words for forgive, because there's a couple of them, is to release someone from a debt. Because when someone says something nasty about me or does something or is inconsiderate or dishonors me, something reflexively goes, you owe me. You owe me and I'm collecting. Yeah. Yeah. And I will collect by saying mean things about you. I will collect by pushing you. I will collect by ghosting you. I will pretend like you don't even exist. And so we get even, we say, so I'm going to collect, and I'll collect through my silence. To forgive someone is to be able to say, my debt was canceled, and I'm going to cancel theirs. And so to forgive someone is really go, they don't owe me anymore. And then what usually happens at that moment when I'm in personal conversation is someone goes, yeah, but, but what about that? Well, what about that? What about that? And I think often we confuse forgiveness with other things. Forgiveness does not mean trust. If someone steals from your company, should I forgive the person who stole from our company? Yes. That doesn't mean they still get to work for you. That's restoration of position. Chris and I, we have 3 children. When they were little, we have a babysitter. If the babysitter, we found out she spent the entire time on her cell phone in the backyard while they were in the front yard. This is a young lady we would not have back. If she said, well, forgive me. Oh, we will. You're not coming back. You know what I'm saying? And so forgiveness, because forgiveness is given, baby trust is earned. And so for in a marriage, if someone messes up, a week later, I thought you forgave me. I am in the process of forgiving you. I don't know if I trust you yet. That's valid. So it's not necessarily trust. It's not necessarily restoration of position, and it's not necessarily reconciliation. I can forgive somebody that is not sorry. It is really hard to have a working restorative relationship with someone who isn't sorry. And so it's like, no, from the bottom of my heart, you don't owe me. I don't think we can hang out if you keep doing things like this and don't see anything wrong with it. And so forgiveness is given, trust is earned. And so I think when you go, okay, I think I can forgive that person. I just don't know if I should reconcile with them right now. I think that helps, incredibly.
Yeah, I think the separation of those things aren't necessarily always there. You think that we're almost conditioned to believe that forgiveness comes with everything else, that you let somebody back in, that you allow them to hurt you again. Yeah. And I think that separation thing is something that spoke to me so much.
Wow.
And another thing is when you elaborated on taking how your sins are viewed. And I think that really spoke to me too, I think a lot of times we diminish everything else except our accomplishments.
I think I went through this thing that if I view my sins as few, I don't know if you remember, few, insignificant, and easily excused. Yes. Oh, just here and there, and not that bad, totally misdemeanors. And the reason I did that, if you knew how I was raised, if you knew what she said to me, and easily excused. And when I go, my sins are many, and they're serious, and they're inexcusable. No, you can't do that, that would crumble. No, that's where you come to the cross. And Jesus came to give himself for stuff that was many, severe, and inexcusable. And it's grace driven. It's not performance driven. It's not religion driven. It is totally driven by the gospel story of the God who comes for us. And the more you bathe in the story of grace, the more it allows you to cut other people some slack. One resource, in his book 25 years ago, I've read it several times over the year. There's an author named Lewis Smedes, and Lewis Smedes wrote this book called The Art of Forgiving. And it was Smedes that did that. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean this or this or this. And that was a breakthrough for me and super helpful in trying to explain that to people over the years.
Yeah, I love that. And another person that was a breakthrough for me, thanks to you, was Timothy Keller.
Oh man, yeah.
Who we lost here not too long ago.
In May, and I have a
quote from him that spoke to me, and I'm not sure if you have heard him say this one, but it's, forgiveness is always a form of voluntary suffering that brings about a greater good. If you don't deal with your wrath through forgiveness, wrath can make you a wraith, turning slowly but surely into a restless spirit and into someone who's controlled by the past and someone who's haunted.
Wow. It's just power. I missed him already. And Tim Keller, if some people watching, there's a book on forgiveness, but it's like, black ink on a white page. If you can hear Tim, like in a YouTube, talk about forgiveness, man, you get his tone, you get his grace, you realize he really wants me to live life well.
Yes.
And if I am hanging on to this and raging and clenched jaw and popping vein, and he says, dude, you're not even alive. You've become a wraith, So he connects, I think he connects the word wraith, which is like a ghost, like a haunted, with wrath, and how those two get connected.
Yeah, no, I even think, I believe it was a virtual interview that he did that you showed up on the screen with another young lady. And I remember right after we got out of here that Sunday, I went and watched that online, and I was searching up on YouTube and going through the amazing resources that you guys have here at Ada Bible Church. I have to say that too, of, sitting in here, being able to hop on the phone that you guys give us a second to do to look everything up and having all the resources and go exactly to what you're describing. It's so amazing. The live streams too were very helpful for.
What I love there, Amari, is that the weekend service should just get the conversation started.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, okay, if this is touching something in you, watch this. And it's not me. It's someone who's been able to be far more articulate than I am in an area, who's devoted tons of time to thinking about it. And so the ability to point people toward resources that's a joy.
Yeah. We had people submit questions. They were eager to ask you. So I'll just fire off a couple here at you and just give me your thoughts on them. Something that I thought was a really interesting one is, can you explain why religion is important beyond just having faith?
I would say two things. Two things are important to me on that.
Yes.
Is that there can be a quest for spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. Religion, or Christianity specifically, is to be practiced in community.
Okay.
It was never God and I are good.
Okay.
There's the whole studies on the one another verses in the Bible. Love one another, encourage one another, pray for each other, confess your sins to one another. Like, dude, I blew it last week. I don't know what to do. And so there's a together thing that, whether it's a little church or a large church, it could even be 4 or 5 believers or people coming to faith at work that are growing together. And so there's a we type thing about it. And there's also a thing about the practices. I talked about the practices of journaling, and I'm thankful for these things. This is where my emotions are today: mad, glad, sad, excited, afraid, ashamed. I'm a beloved son of the Father. It's not just what we do one day. It's what we do again and again and again. And so going to church twice a year, Christmas and Easter thing, I go, okay, probably better than never darkening the door of a church, but there's just something about absorbing the word week after week after week after week that, I mean, like, going to church twice a year is like exercising twice a year. Yeah. You know, it's just kind of like, yeah, oh, okay, but it's the disciplines that you embrace, like sitting under the teaching of the word, disciplines of community, that I think get us the farthest, the fastest.
Yes, love it. All right, next one here. When people are having difficulty being able to trust God and they go, well, why God? I hear that a lot of, why God is there so much negativity? Why is there so much hurt, so much struggle? What is there to gain from allowing disease and war to affect people's lives? What is your reply to something like that when people are wondering why?
One of my responses is that even in voicing that question, they're asking a question that is very commonly asked in the Bible. The Bible isn't, and these people had faith and their lives went great. Psalm chapter 13 asks why 4 times in the first 2 verses. Or how long, not why, but how long. But it's the same thing. Like, how come I keep praying and you keep not doing anything? How long, O Lord, will you reject me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I struggle with my thoughts? How long will my enemy triumph? And this is a worship song that just begins by going like how long? There's another psalm that says, how come people that are so bad, you seem to bless their lives? What's up with that? Yeah. Jesus in John chapter 9 is with his disciples. There's a guy born with blindness. He's never seen. And the disciples are going like, yeah, explain that one, you know? And so we have a Bible, and the story of God in the Bible is people grappling with the why question and the how long question. And so as someone walks toward God, they are opening their heart and saying, I'm confused, this really disappoints me, this really disrupts me, but the question I have is, which direction are you facing? Yeah. Meaning that I can turn my back and say, this is confusing, or I can face God and express and there's a language in the Bible, it's called lament, where you're bringing your frustration, you're bringing your meltdown, you're pouring out your heart to God. And so my encouragement would be very disrupted by the mess in our world, but walk toward God with that rather than walking away from God with that.
This one was something that I got a couple of times, and I think it's something that a lot of people deal with and have a problem with. So the question is, Jeff, I'm curious on men who have an addiction or problem with pornography and they really want to repent but can't seem to stop. I understand that it's something that I should take responsibility for, and I understand that it is a sin, but I no longer have control. I know I'm not innocent, and I gave away control doing this and getting addicted to it bit by bit by bit. But at the end, what am I to do about it?
Yeah, that's huge, and that's far more common than we would want to recognize. I would just, if I was like one-on-one with the person, going, dude, how can I break away? I would begin with just a conversation about what that person is looking for, because it's what we're all looking for. We're looking for intimacy. We're looking for intimacy, and what deeper intimacy than someone taking off their clothes for you, but it's false intimacy. That's not a real relationship. It's a relationship on a screen. And so to be able to say, investing my time and energy in false intimacy is robbing me from real relationships with real people and people who need my attention today. And so to see it as a thief, that's I'm looking for something that's good. It's intimacy. It's something I was made for, intimacy, but the false intimacy is going to kill off my most critical relationships. And the second is that what we most fear we need to do, because what we most fear is exposure. Some people in my life are going to find out I'm going to get exposed. Best thing to do is expose yourself to a trusted spiritual advisor and to be able to say, I don't know how to, I am powerless to break away from this. And so we try to do it alone where we should try to break away in community. Here at Ada Bible Church, we have, forget what they're called, I think it's purity mentoring groups, where literally when a dude goes, I can't break away from this, we get them in a mentoring group with other guys who are in the process of breaking away from that. And so I think another mistake is we try to do it alone.
Yes. So we talked about this at the beginning, and one of the questions is, I really need advice on how to deal with that I'm struggling with my faith. And I spoke to you initially about, I think that's a big thing that almost every college student that can relate to, of no matter what background you came from, of church once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. When you get to college, there's almost a pause button on the faith. And as you get to the end there, or have moments or glimpses and things go wrong in college, you want to hit play. But some people are kind of hesitant to hit play, not sure where the button is anymore. So what do you offer there?
I would just go back to a conversation that we had earlier about engaging with a church when it's this risk thing, high risk, high reward. And my encouragement is to take the risky step, to move toward a church or a Christian group. And by Christian group, I mean it might be a campus Bible study, and that can sometimes serve its purpose while you're on campus. When you leave school, then what? And so the church can be this, whatever decade you're in, you know, womb to tomb, there can be a place for you here. And so I would say find a healthy church that opens the scriptures, a church that is known for a gracious spirit, a loving spirit, not angry and belittling, where you can go, I can grow here and I'm learning here. And I say just take that risky step of taking the first move and bring a friend. Go with someone. It's much less lonely if you walk in a door and you got a sidekick.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Take your wingman to church and not to the bar.
That's a good one. We need a t-shirt out of that one. So one, I just want to say thank you. As we're wrapping up here, I think there's obviously the premise of you being a pastor that a lot of people can address and find conversation with you about. But you also love your family. You love hiking, cycling. You're an author. Share with the people out there any other parts of you that, this is an extension of you. Yes, you're a servant and you're helping all of us out, but I feel like learning more about you is so engaging and has invited me more into you. So I would love for you to just share with people out there quickly what else you're passionate about or what really gets you out of bed every morning.
I think one of the big revelations to me is that when I was starting out in ministry and I thought I could have a big impact, I thought big impact would mean bigger group. And I turned 61 in May, 5 grandkids at this point. And instead of speaking to a arena of people, I think one of the most powerful environments for me is the fire pit in my backyard. It was having 5 international pastors, Czech Republic, Finland, Poland, in my home for 3 days, talking about preaching and ministry, where we were like a family together for 3 days, had something like 9 meals together, and instead of going to a church conference room, then going back to the hotel. And so more and more, it's just, I think some of my greatest impact is in a small environment. It's my 4-year-old granddaughter. It's helping my son move on a Saturday morning. It's the little stuff that ends up being the big stuff.
That's lovely. I think that just shows, if people can't already tell how much I admire you and how much I look up to you, that it's things like that you've built a tremendous setting and a tremendous place for people to come. And in so many facets, you can wear that on your shoulder, and I hope you are proud of that at the end of the day. But that's not who you are. There's so much more extension, and hearing the love and adoration that you have for your family and those around you, just so lovely. And even looking at your Instagram of things like that, like every other picture is you with somebody else smiling. My kids or my dad or some preachers in my backyard. That's pretty much it. I love it. Well, thank you again, Jeff. I hope somebody out there was able to take something today from everything that we've heard and adapt it and hopefully share something. So if you have something that really hit you or really inspired you, feel free to leave a comment, share it, or reach out to Jeff. Jeff, where can they get a hold of you if they aren't here in Michigan?
Just reach Ada Bible, adabible.org.
Perfect. Anything else you want to share with the people out there?
No, just what a delight it's been to be here today, and just great, just cool, just to sit and just to have a conversation.
I appreciate you so much, Jeff. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate it. That was awesome.